Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Fine Sassy. I am the founder of the Plenary Co. and the co-creator of the I Am a Scientist program. So if you're unfamiliar, I Am a Scientist is an open access collection of stories and resources designed to break stereotypes and barriers related to STEM and STEM professionals. So you can learn more and check out some of our resources at iamascientist.info. And today is our first resource spotlight. And this is a series that's part of our brand new RISE community. RISE stands for Resources for Inclusive STEM Education. And this is a community that we co-created with educators to make sure that you have everything that you need to make STEM as accessible as possible for your students. And so all of our events are sort of driven by the interests of the entire community, shaped by educators that we serve. So if you're interested and you haven't already, please do head over to our Facebook group, RISE, Resources for Inclusive STEM Education. Sign up, let us know what kind of programming you'd like to see. And that brings us to today's event. Please do use the comments. Let us know if you have any questions for Olu. We're gonna bring her in now and I will introduce you. Welcome, Olu.
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, everyone.
Hi, so good to see you. So Olu Ibrahim is the founder of Kids in Tech. And Kids in Tech is a 501c3 nonprofit that was founded in Lowell, Massachusetts in 2016 with the goal of getting more students excited and interested in computer literacy, computer science, and computational thinking skills. So it actually started out providing students in Lowell, the Lowell area with interactive and free after-school programs, but it has since been expanding, and we're very, very excited to learn more about that expansion and the materials that are now available online to everybody watching wherever you are. And so they recently received a grant from Massachusetts STEM Week to create curriculum specifically focused on cybersecurity and becoming a good digital citizen. And they're making those available to everyone. So Olu earned her master's in education in curriculum instruction and education leadership from Lesley University. And for the last decade, she has been an incredible leader on a number of educational initiatives with the mission of making tech more accessible to all students. So Olu, you ready to get started?
I am. That was such a lovely introduction. I'm going to do that to my parents.
You are doing lovely work, so it deserves a lovely introduction. All right, well, I want to get started by giving folks some more context. So for who you are and why your work is so important and so aligned with the RISE community's mission. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to found Kids in Tech back in 2016?
Yeah, so as you stated before, I was a former teacher, did some policy work, consulting work around education. In 2016 particularly, I was looking for volunteer opportunities in the community in which I lived. And there was a lot of STEM stuff going on, but I wasn't really sure if people were focusing on T as much. So I decided to just do a focus group as an educator and as a data nerd. I decided to do a focus group and try to figure out what the community needs were, right? And so from there, talking to different people, I came up with the kids and executive directors and other stakeholders that helped me to formalize our Tech Club program, where essentially we would go on site to schools, administer programs, hands-on activities around tech, with the hope that that gives kids confidence to pursue not only tech-based projects outside of school or outside of our after-school program, but they just got more excited and it piqued their interest because we know that young kids, boys and girls, but more so girls, lose interest in STEM by 3rd and 4th grade. And that was our primary focus, was to help elementary students first make sure that they have the underpinning skills. And then we since was expanded to helping middle school students as well. So I guess it was just a confluence of things happening in my life. I wanted to volunteer. I saw a need. Lowell, Massachusetts is a burgeoning innovation hub. How do we connect to local talent to the local growing innovation economy? And that starts by showing them the pathway to things in their own backyard and how do they get there, and helping them find mentors in their own communities that can lead the way. So it was just, like I said, it was just a confluence of all things. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll have to do this.
And I love your origin story too. Can you share your early exposure to tech with your dad and how that story unfolded?
Oh yeah, so I grew up mostly in the Midwest, my formative years, and my dad is a biophysicist, he has a PhD in biophysics, and so all his daughters, there's four of us, we're all nerds, we're all science, science and technology, we grew up relatively low income. Because my parents were immigrants, they came to this country, they're working on their PhDs in sciences, and my dad just saved up months for like this Christmas gift. We were like, okay, what's this gonna be? And so he like brought home a computer. And like he was doing most of the building, but he's like, okay, girls, I'm gonna like teach you this different parts of the computer. We're gonna put it together. So that was like a really formative experience. And then my sisters and I would fight over who got to use the one computer in the house.
Of course, naturally.
Yeah, so yeah, my dad was influential in that way, where he was one of my first teachers. Both my parents are, yeah, they're both in the science. My mom's a nurse. So.
I love that story because I love imagining the impact that seeing the inside of the technology from such a young age can have on you. And that really transitions to the next question too, which is about access, which is such a key piece of the puzzle here and such a through line in a lot of the work that you've done. So why do you see access as so important specifically in tech spaces? And do you see any differences or gaps in the way that kids are taught these skills right now that can contribute to inequities down the line?
Yeah, well, first I would say like seeing is believing, right? I think especially elementary and middle school students, what you see around you, you start to formulate your self-identity. And so at least with like, I can talk about my own life, like friends of mine who are lawyers or doctors, there's like somebody in their family very early who kind of put them on the trajectory. So access is important, right? So that part of our tech club program is really making sure there's tech professionals who come into our tech club and talk about their own career paths and volunteer, because that is just it's just so crucial. Like if you don't know, how can you become what you don't see? So that's one thing. So that's why access is really important to tech. And I think that's a way to help the pipeline eventually become more inclusive too, is just making sure that more people have access. And then I think another thing about access is like not being able to discover and play. Not every kid has the opportunity just to sit and discover and play and make quote unquote mistakes and learn concepts. Oftentimes kids go to school, they're like learning to a test because of policy implications, how that works. But that impacts especially low income kids, right, who may not have access to extracurricular activities where they can actually discover and play and bring out their own geniuses. So I think there's a lot of those are some of the reasons why access is really important. And there's like also, especially with young girls, when we think about math specifically, but men are not better than women in math. It's just that men are encouraged more, right, to pursue it. And if they make a mistake in math specifically, adults will encourage them to think it over again and try again. Whereas girls develop math anxiety if they don't get those answers right, because there's some gender stereotypes that come into math specifically that leads into science and leads into computer science. So all those things. So that's why it's really important to have access. It's just I don't know. There's an optimist in me. I'm like, if every kid could see like. Just have access to great people who know how to teach these things. There's nothing they can't learn. It's true. There's nothing you can't learn if you have the right people showing you the way.
Yeah, and one thing I love about that answer too is the way that you're talking about access is so much broader than sometimes we think of it. It's not just putting the content in front of students. It's discovery. It's play. It's giving them the space for psychological access to make mistakes, to fail. That's such a critical part, as we both know, of STEM as a professional. But you're right, it's not always taught that way in the classroom. It's taught as something that's fact and very memory based sometimes. So
right. And even right now in the COVID crisis right now, and that's what scientists are doing. They're making mistakes as they try to find a vaccine eventually for the population to take, right? They're like, you have to be curious. Like, we don't want kids to lose their curiosity. And that is what science and technology offers, is that space to always create and to help make the world a better place. And yeah, you just, you can't punish somebody, like, right? Like, that's not the point of science. Science is like, you're learning. Oh, we found new information. Oh, that's the better answer. Oh, we found another information. That's a better answer. Same thing with technology. Oh, that device didn't work. Oh, that app didn't work. Oh, we made some tweaks, and this will make our user base more happy. Like, it's just discovering plays what happens in our jobs every day. And I think we lose sight of that in school.
Yes, it's iterative, it's provisional, and it's tinkering. It's about building on what we know and continuing to do better and better. I love that. I think that's so important that we talk about access, not just in terms of general, sort of the conventional sense of it, but also in terms of how we define access and making sure we're defining access in as broad and consequential way as possible. So I really appreciate that. And so that brings me to some of the stats I saw on the Kids in Tech website about 2024. Approximately 80% of the top 10 most in-demand STEM jobs are expected, the top 10 jobs are expected to be STEM jobs in your area in Lowell. And I would expect that's true for a lot of different places. So since a big part of the goal is to make sure that there's equitable preparation and access to these jobs, what do you think are some of the biggest system-wide blocks or challenges right now that need to be overcome in order to make sure that every student has an opportunity to pursue a career in tech?
That's a great question. It's a lot of systems work. I would say number one, like, every kid, technology is no longer a luxury, it's utility. And so every kid deserves a laptop or a device of some sort so they can get on the internet. And then I think government needs to play a role in kind of closing the gaps, whether they're in a rural area or a more city-like area, right? I think government needs to lead the charge. I know there's initiatives on the federal level for school districts to get access to internet through, like, I think the E-rate program, for example. But I do think in everyday life, as our lives become more entwined with the digital world, that is something we really need to focus on. Like, everyone, every child, every parent, we need to get on the internet, and we need the physical devices. Another thing is really encouraging people to be teachers. I know there's a lot of organizations who've been working on this for a very long time, especially people with STEM backgrounds. Like, we need them to be in the classroom teaching, like, and we need to incentivize them to do so, because they can easily go into the private sector and do great stuff there. But there is something to be said about a mathematician being like a middle school teacher, right? That is where you can shape the hearts and minds and get kids to, like, love math, right? Because they love math. They genuinely love math, and they understand math or science or computer science, whatever it is. That's one thing. I think there has to be a system-wide way of really incentivizing teachers. In terms of, like, people of color, young girls, we have to really think about retention. Oftentimes, girls and women of color will go through the proper channels, whether it's any type of post-secondary education, whether it's going to college or getting certificates. They'll enter some type of STEM fields, and they'll tend to drop off as the years progress. So how do we make more gender-friendly workplaces, and how do we combat gender discrimination and stereotypes of what your campaign says? Like, anybody can be a scientist. Like, there's not a certain look to a scientist, and your campaign that you guys have done really and executed flawlessly is showing it to be true, which I appreciate, because again, seeing is believing. But those are just some systematic things I think we really need to think about, because we want more people to share their ideas before they leave the earth. And so we don't want people to leave without sharing their awesome ideas.
Yes, I love that. We don't want people to leave without leaving everything they've got.
Yeah, exactly. And in science and technology is like the basis of a lot of creation, right? Like even the devices that we're like, somebody thought of this, like humans thought of this.
And art. So much of
Yeah.
art is entwined and creativity across the board. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yeah. So those are some symptomatic, like systems work that we can do, and we can help with legislation and policy and organizing, just like it's voting season right now. I think people who care about this work need to organize amongst themselves and start to push policymakers. Remember, the politicians work for us. So, whether it's in your town, your school committee, you can say, we want to see more, tech education in school and after school, or we want to see more partnerships, right? I think like communities rise up and do the same, or kind of organizing. I'll start to shift the needle too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think those are really good points. I love what you said, that technology is no longer a luxury, it's a utility. I think that's a really important point. It reminds me too, because technology obviously has been around in different forms for centuries, and it's just the sort of latest wave of technology. But I think that you're right, that like right now we're at a sort of critical, pivotal moment in that the people who are prepared to shape technology right now have tremendous influence and power in society to shape society more broadly. And so if those people are not representative of society on the whole, then that technology is going to embed and reflect the biases of the people that are creating it. So I think that's such a good point. It's so important that we think at the systems level and at the individual level and try and tackle from both sides. So speaking of tackling these things, I'd love to talk a little bit about the new materials and resources that Kids in Tech is launching. So you recently launched some curricula related to cybersecurity digital citizenship for the Mass STEM Week Challenge. So can you tell us a little bit about what the STEM Week Challenge is and why Kids in Tech chose to focus on these topics specifically?
Yeah, so in the state of Massachusetts, I just want to preface this, anybody from across the country can partake in our challenge. I just want to preface this, but because we're a Massachusetts-based nonprofit, the state of Massachusetts had an annual STEM week for about 3 years now. And they put out a call for a STEM a design challenge grant. And for me, I was thinking, if I was a kid, like, what should they know right now? And because of just prior to COVID, but just, every day we're using technology, information is being disseminated, and companies are working to keep our information safe, and et cetera. So I realized like these concepts are not really taught in school as much as because there's not enough time in the school day, right? There's just not enough time in the school day. So how do we help teachers in school or after school get access to curricula that helps with foundational understanding of cybersecurity concepts? And then the importance of being respectful and kind online is so crucial for kids to learn. And adults
too.
And adults too, yeah. It's so crucial to learn. I think more now than ever, our lives we're in a fast growing, evolving digital age. And as we progress, like you said, our lives will be more intertwined, we'll be more dependent on technology. That is why I thought, okay, if anything, young kids need to understand about digital digital citizenship. Also understand the architecture of the internet, because that's how now information is being disseminated, and they get information, and how to stay safe online. Like, what can they do to stay safe online? Those are the general topics for elementary and middle school students. And then for the high school students, the topics are more advanced, about intro to computer networking, cryptanalysis, cryptography.
I feel like I need to take a
And then how to, like, if after they do the series of challenges, so every lesson, there's about 10 plus hours of content. Every lesson is a challenge within itself, because we made the assumption that no kid really, we made the assumption that nobody has prior knowledge, and we want to make sure that kids have a broad overview of cybersecurity concepts or digital citizenship concepts. And so every challenge is about 10 challenges. Well, I would say about like 5 to 10 challenges in each curriculum for elementary, middle school, and high school that that's already we already did all the work for you. You just have to download materials and follow along, and we have a teacher's guide for you that can help you implement the curriculum. But that's what I thought about, is just, there's a lot of unfilled jobs in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, I think it's like 1 million unfilled jobs in the next year or two. So there's a talent shortage that needs to be filled specifically in this area of tech, and just making it an interesting field. So there was a lot of things I was thinking about when we put together that design challenge. But those were the many reasons. We need more people.
Yeah, it seems like it is a moment in time where this is an opportunity to take something incredibly practical that has a potential career path, but even if you don't pursue it as a career, it's still extremely relevant to your life, and something that every student would benefit from engaging with. So that said, I know that a lot of your early programming, as you mentioned, was in person, focused on your local area. You still do all of that work, but these resources are online and can be accessed by anyone. So can you give us a quick example or quick overview of the different ways that people might be able to use it? The resources that you have, are they best for in-person, for online learning, for either? How can educators best use the materials you have?
Sure. So they are designed definitely to be used remotely and online, but you can also use the same PowerPoints and decks in person as well. Maybe I should share my screen and show. Should I show everyone?
You can experiment if that works. I'm not totally sure if that will work.
Yeah, let me try. Let me see if it works. This is my first time being on a StreamYard. So let's see. I'm gonna see if we can make this work.
We'll explore together. Speaking of room for failure. So
here we go. Let's see. I think, okay, let's see. I hope we.
No luck?
Oh, I think so. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Okay, I will add that to the stream. There you go. Hopefully everyone can see it. Let us know in the comments if you have any trouble seeing the share screen.
So here, so you want to go to the Kids in Tech page. Under our programs, you want to press Mass STEM Week. We'll ask you for your information. You want to type your name, email, and then you'll get to this screen. You can join our private Facebook group, where educators can talk amongst themselves about how the curriculum is working and engage with staff members. Here you will see, you can download, here's the teacher's guide, for example, for elementary. You can download it.
Awesome.
Yep, so you can download it to your screen. We have the PowerPoint slides that have the games.
Yes, my favorite.
Oh, the scavenger hunt game. Yeah, so this game we're teaching kids about, where's a router, what's an IP address, and they're going around their house or their classroom to identify these materials. And you can download the materials here, or I think you can. Let's see. Yeah, so then we have a webinar that shows you the overall curriculum. And then we have a poster and a history poster, I guess. Yeah.
And it's nicely broken down by elementary, middle school, high school, so you can find exactly what age group is right for you.
Yeah, exactly. You can do all or one of the challenges, or all three. But the materials are all here, or you can just download it as a zip file.
And everything is free and open access to download, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, oh, there it is. Perfect. And then you see it comes right to your computer.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that is where our materials lie.
Wonderful.
We hope to, okay, that was my first time using that. So can you see my screen, or should I?
Oh, I think we just pulled it back to the two of us.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
This must be the first time using StreamYard. So.
Well, okay, so looking at the materials that you have, the STEM Week challenge is coming up, right? It's in like next week. Is that right? Or is it the week after?
Yeah,
Okay. Let's say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
The week of the 19th to the 23rd, to the both weekends. That's when Massachusetts, wants a lot of the teachers. Well, anybody in the United States, we encourage you to use our materials, but that's what Massachusetts is pulling, like, is having a big focus on STEM.
Yeah, so let's say that we have some super ambitious educators watching that are like, yes, even though it's coming up super quick, I want to jump in. I want to have my students participate in the STEM Week challenge. What do you recommend for the fastest way to pull in some resources and get students engaged with the challenge week?
Well, download the materials. Everything is there. You have to, as a teacher, you have to do the prep work so that you have to download the materials. That's helpful. I would say, if anything, the career poster would be great. It's very quick and easy. You can go through that with your students just to kind of, tease them about, okay, we're gonna be learning about these concepts during STEM week or throughout the course of the year. And there's like a history poster. So those are quick guides to help educators get quickly acquainted. And then I would say, you just have to do the work. So you got to download our materials and and go through the lessons. Obviously, self-paced, but that's what you guys got to do. And then
is each challenge standalone? Like, could they go in and pick one challenge and bring it into their classroom?
We made it where everything builds off of each other. So I would recommend that you go through each challenge because, again, we're assuming no prior knowledge. So we wanted to build the lessons off each other. So I would say go in order. Take your time. You have like a lot, you have STEM week, but you have all the weeks after to do as many of those lessons or as few of them as you want. And another thing is, like, we have a pre-assessment and post-assessment, so the kids can see if they learned anything, and you can also see if your kids have mastered anything. So yeah, I would say I would recommend doing them in order, just because that's how we designed it.
Don't jump around.
Don't jump around. Yeah, we want them to really walk away with a solid footing on the concepts.
Awesome. All right, so looking forward, Kids in Tech has already done such awesome work, and I have no doubt that it's just going to continue to expand and grow. There's going to be new resources all the time. So if educators are interested in following Kids in Tech, what might they expect in the future? In other words, what do you have planned for the future of Kids in Tech?
Oh my goodness, I think we want to reach more kids. I think more now than ever. We have to close the digital divide gap. So we would love to expand our programming. So if there's any teachers who are interested in our tech club and bringing that to their local communities, let us know. I think definitely creating content for young kids around different computer science, technology, and science concepts would be something that we'd be looking to, just because it fits into our mission. Like, how do we create content that is easy to understand and accessible for kids to access, where they can fine-tune their skills and discover what they like. I think those are things that we'd be working on that tie in really well with our mission.
Wonderful. I look forward to seeing all of those new developments. And okay, so shifting gears as we sort of near the end of the session, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you've personally learned through your journey so far. So what you've learned about tech and education since starting Kids in Tech. Has anything surprised you along the way? Any insights you can share?
Well, I think, I feel like a lot. What can I say? I can say that founding an organization is a lot of work. It's good work, but I think it's long hours. But in terms of, so that's entrepreneurship, that's like the business side. But in terms of tech education, I think I'm going to be positive here and say I think people understand the importance of it. I think more philanthropic dollars are going into STEM work. So I think people are investing in the change that they want to see. So that was surprising to me a little bit, where people seemed seemed interested, and I hope that trend continues because we need creative builders and creators of the new world that we're going to live in, or the future world that we're going to live in. So those are some positives.
You may be noticing a little bit of a culture shift, and there's more support teams coming in to help you get the work done.
Yeah, and I think everybody understands now the investment we have to make in our future. So I hope that stays the same, and I hope there's more investment of time, energy, and capital into making sure that all kids at least have access to see what they can become in the STEM fields.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that's an awesome thing to have learned along the way, is that there's actually a sort of horizon here where there's more resources, there's more interest, there's more support, because it's very important work. Yeah. So, all right. So last question. What are some things that you think that every educator could do, regardless of the resources that they might have available, or that they could consider in order to make technology more accessible to all of their students? So what might be some practical advice that you have for teachers or for parents or counselors, really anyone that has students' ears, that might help them open more minds and doors for the next generation of students in tech?
That's a good question. I'm like, that's a really good question. What advice do I have? Well, I believe in policy. So I'm like organized, and people legislate what's important to them, and policy. So I would say policy is a big one. If you want to see more technology used during the school day, if you want to see more curriculum used in and outside of school, I think after school is very important too, right? Because kids spend 80% of their time at home or with friends. That's 80% of the time. 20% of the time is only in school. So I would say after school matters too, where there needs to be an ecosystem of policy made so that kids can be successful in school and after school. So I would say that for me is very important, because that's where every kid who can get into the device if we legislate it to be so.
Right. And do you have tips for how to do that for an educator? Do you know how, should they be calling their representatives? Are there local groups that you have heard of that they could join? Do you have any tips for how to get involved on the sort of legislature or policy sides of things?
That's true. I mean, I know a couple of years ago, March for Science was a big one. So any kind of type group like that you would want to get plugged into. I would say sometimes it's just finding people in your local community who have the same interests as you, and you guys organize yourselves and write a letter and set up a meeting with your local city councilor or school committee member or your state senator or your state representative or even the governor. I'll sometimes, partner up with like kids in tech, right? Whose mission is part of who could help you on the advocacy side, right? Partnering up with existing organizations in the STEM field and say, hey, we would like to see X done around technology education. Could you help us be advocates for this? And then there's, getting somebody to file a bill for you, and then you have to go through the whole process.
Have your lips.
Right. This could be a long, grueling process.
That's a great point that you bring up March for Science, since that's one of the ways that we connected initially. And definitely one of the things that I learned through that whole experience was just how much legislators will, within bounds, pay attention to people when they organize and when they bring their demands or requests together in a sort of compelling, organized fashion. That, that's one of the things that I heard from a lot of the people that we talked to in that work was, yeah, if I work in this XYZ politician or legislator's office and I read every single thing that comes in and create a summary and pass that along, that there actually are people who their job is to listen. So even if, at the large scale, we don't always see what we want being reflected in policy changes, we have a lot more power sometimes at the local level than we do anywhere else. So I think that's a really great point to bring up, that plugging in, learning from the existing organizations that are doing that work and figuring out where you can fit in to be an extra voice to sort of really drive and shift influence and power, if not federally, then at least in your local or state level. So
right.
That's a really good
point. I think people often, and that's a good point, I think people often forget how much power they have locally. And that's where most of the shift happens is local studies. So yeah, absolutely. I just believe in organizing. I think that's one of the best ways to shift the resources for the kids that need it. So many kids need more access in school and after school. So I think that's the primary way for educators and teachers. And teachers don't have to do it alone. They can ask parents to do it. They can ask nonprofits in the local area to be partners with them in this. I don't think that teachers should carry the burden. They have one of the hardest jobs in the world. And so if anything, teachers should be letting communities know how can they, for me, it's like, how can we support our teachers? And so teachers should feel vocal enough to say, this is how you guys can support us. This is what we think we should be done in terms of science and technology education. What can your organization do to get us to the next level? So I know I just believe in policy. And I believe, because that's where things start to shift.
Absolutely. I love that. Maybe we should in the future look at doing something specifically on how educators can get involved at the policy level. That might be a fun.
Yeah, and educators should. I think educators should run for office too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, school committee, all that stinks. Yeah, so there's
basically Olu's advice is change the world, run for office.
We really do need teachers because they understand the work and we need their voices at their table. And nobody knows that better than a teacher who's experienced it, whether you're an in-school teacher or after school teacher. Like there's just, you have the expertise and that expertise is needed more than ever. So I believe, like I said, I believe in policy. I mean, there's other things, but that's what I want to push because especially right now, it's election season. So even after election season, I think people still need to be organizing and figuring out where their interests lie and partnering with allies to make it happen.
Right. Drive lasting change to the policy that will create that systems-wide change we talked about to make sure that tech really is truly accessible to as many students as possible. I think that's an awesome note. So that's an exciting note to end on. Very exciting and inspiring and motivational. So I would love to get the sort of key places that teachers can follow y'all. So if educators want to keep track of you, where do they go?
Well, you guys can follow us on social media. We're at at kidsintech.org, all one word. Maybe I can put it in the chat too, I think. I'll put it in the chat too. Everybody has
I can also post it in the comments after, whatever you want.
Okay, cool. And then we have a newsletter. So we try to send out a quarterly newsletter so you can be on our email list and we can give you all the updates there. And then what else can people do to follow us?
So the main website where they can access all the resources that we just shared it's Kids in Tech, and then what's the backslash for them to find that?
STEM Week Challenge. Okay. And I can send you that information afterward. But if you go to our website, our www.kidsintech.org, go to our programs, Mass STEM Week, that's the page. But I do believe it's STEM Week Challenge.
Are there dashes between the words or all one word?
There's dashes between the words, I think.
Okay, awesome. All right, wonderful. Well, Olu, it is always wonderful talking with you. I am so excited about the work that you're doing, and hopefully this is the first of many conversations that we'll be able to have with you in the RISE community. So. Yes,
there's one more thing I forgot to mention. For the first 50 educators who finished the challenge, posted on, I don't know, your channel or tag us in it. We do have a surprise for you in the mail.
Yes, surprises. Okay, so what is it? The first 50 educators that do what? What do they need to do in order to get?
Complete all the challenges in one. It could be all of the elementary, all of the middle school, or all of the high school.
Okay, and how do they tell you when they've completed all the challenges?
Well, they can email us, show us the pictures, they can tag us. Either one works. Or they can tell you, or post it in your community group.
Yes, we definitely will. Okay, when we send this around, we'll make sure that we put all of that info in there so people know that they can win free stuff. Everybody loves winning free stuff. So that's awesome. Anything else you want to share?
No, that's really it. I mean, I hope that you guys find the challenge to be meaningful experience for all of you educators and a meaningful experience for all your kids. And we would always love feedback too. So as you're doing the challenge, let us know what's working, what's not working, so we can improve it. And yeah, I hope this is just one of many conversations around technology and science education with this particular community, as we all care about science and technology, and as we seek to make sure that our kids have the tools that they need to be successful. So I look forward to more conversations.
Me too. Thank you so much for being here, Olu. We're going to sign off. And before we sign off, I just want to say for anyone who wants to follow the I Am a Scientist project, you can follow us on Twitter as well at I Am a STEM. Or you can join our Facebook group, which is RISE, Resources for Inclusive STEM Education. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Olu, so much. And we look forward to next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.